Let's talk about the Republicans, eh? Let's talk about Emmer. L. Emmer. Mr. Emmer L. Emmer L. It's strange because I thought I would have some time to digest this nominee, this Emmer guy. I thought I'd have some time to go through his record. In fact, I think I actually have it pulled up. I had it pulled up because I attended at one point to go through it. Oh yes, here it is. I was going to talk about his history lobbying against cancer treatment clinics in his community, try to protect the cancer treatment industry, the profiteers locally. So he became a lobbyist after endorsing building new clinics. He then turned against it after taking the lobby money. I was like doing all this research into his history as a lobbyist, his history as the House Majority Whip. But anyway, Tom Emmer, we'll start from the top and then we'll get there. So the Republicans are still in chaos. The Republicans still have yet to choose a House Speaker. And this is what it looked like on CNN with Jake Tapper talking to one of the Republicans about the chaos 2 days ago.
I hope you don't take this personally, but do you guys have any idea how clownish you look?
Well, you know, Jake, I'm very fond of saying that Congress is a lot like high school, but even more so. So hopefully we'll get past this. And, you know, I certainly have been part of the governing majority, and I'm going to stay part of that and look forward to those who are on the fringes hopefully coming together so that we can get a speaker.
Okay, so that's what this guy hoped for. Jake Tapper has... At this point, he's just asking Republicans, like, when are you going to get it together? You guys look like clowns. I mean, he's not, like, kind of saying that's literally what he's saying. You guys look like clowns. You guys look like fools. You guys realize that, yeah? And every single Republican I've seen ask this question, none of them have denied it. I think Matt Gaetz, he's been trying to spin it as, like, you know, democracy is messy. And, you know, democracy, you know, you got to break a few eggs in order to make a democracy cake. And he's trying to find some way to spin it so they don't look chaotic, so them not doing their job and trying to get a budget passed or trying to get some compromise on any piece of legislation with the Democrats or try to get anything done, really. Like, literally anything done. They haven't been able to do that, and it's hard to spin not doing your job when they're supposed to call the Democrats the do-nothing Democrats. I don't know if you guys saw that old Simpsons meme. The "We can't govern." We can't govern Simpsons. But this is not supposed to be both the Republicans and the Democrats. Right here. We want what's worse for everyone. We're just plain evil. Republican convention. We hate life and ourselves. We can't govern. This can't be both parties. If this is both parties, then this joke is no longer funny. It's just sad. Anyway, the Republicans, after going through, it was Kevin McCarthy. He was pulled out by 8 people. And then they had Steve Scalise, and he failed. Then they had Jim Jordan, and he called 3 votes, and he failed all 3 rounds of votes, each vote being more disastrous than the last. So the Republicans came together and they said, okay, this is a bad idea to do this all in public. This is a bad idea to embarrass ourselves like this, to have vote after vote after vote. How about we agree that before we have a vote again and have Jim Jordan make a fool of us, or whoever the nominee is make a fool of us, or the people voting against them making a fool of us, let's all have a closed private ballot. And we only bring it to the floor, the House floor, to actually have an official vote where the whole country will point at the Republicans and laugh. We'll only do it once we've reached 217, which is the amount of votes they need, privately. Well, they have a race. It was between like 6 or 7 people. And then the Republican that won the race with 117 votes was Tom Emmer. Now, 117 votes is way off of 217, but that was because there were 6 people running. It was a competitive primary, but he came out on top. He's the House Majority Whip. He is considered the most moderate option of all the Republicans that were put forward. We'll just let CNN talk a little bit about it, and I'll talk about the little bit I got to research and learn about this guy before he just got ejected out of our periphery.
Capitol Hill, let's get straight to Manu Raju for that news. Manu, what are you hearing from inside that meeting behind you?
House Republicans just nominated Tom Emmer, the House GOP whip, to be the next Speaker of the House. This is according to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who chairs the Republican conference, putting out a post on Twitter saying that he, in fact, won the Republican nomination. We'll wait what the final vote count ultimately was. The final ballot on the 5th ballot was against him and Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana. They had battled initially started the day with 8 candidates, now down to 5, ultimately down to 2, and Emmer winning the nomination. The question now is how close is he to the 217 votes he needs on the House floor to be elected Speaker? And
so in this vote, it was 117, right? So he was 100 votes off from 217. But again, that's with him against one other guy. So now that that one other guy is gone, he's now the Speaker-elect for the Republicans. Not the Speaker-elect as an elected Speaker, but their nominee to become the Speaker. Now he has to just convince the people who voted for the other guy that, hey, look, we need to move on. This is embarrassing for our party. This is embarrassing for the country. We've got national security issues. I'm sure he'll talk about the violence going on in Israel, or that, again, we'll talk about it in a second, but that was his plan. Talk about the violence going on between Israel and Hamas, and do whatever he can to try to convince these guys we need to jump on the boat and get on sailing with 217. At least that was the plan. And there was nothing that I thought could necessarily upset him from the Trump angle. That was my original thought. And the reason why was because 24 hours ago, Donald Trump came out and said he was not going to endorse a Speaker candidate and said he was going to stay out of it. So when I was looking at this guy's chances of failing or succeeding, I was looking at, well, this is a guy who actually said he's in favor of gay marriage a few years ago. Now, it was after gay marriage had already been, legalized across the land by the Supreme Court. The Republicans had already lost the issue. It was just acknowledging it when it comes to a federal legislative standpoint. So if one day the Supreme Court says, you know what, boys kissing, that's no bueno, get that out of here, then the federal government can say, well, we've already passed gay marriage across the land. Everybody can have gay marriage. He was in favor of that. He acknowledged that reality, and so I thought that might be an issue for him. I didn't know how much of an issue it would be, maybe an unstated issue, but I thought a bigger issue would be him voting to extend the deadline with the budget, him working with the Democrats in very slight ways, things that would be important if he was going to go out there and then have to negotiate a budget with Democrats. But if he somehow, the one skill that would be necessary to be House Speaker, since he showed that skill slightly in the past, that now counts against him for people like Lauren Boebert, for people like Matt Gaetz, and others who don't want to have any compromise whatsoever with the Democrats who control the Senate and control the White House. And so if they want to do anything for the next year, they have to find some way to compromise, unless they're quite literally saying, our only role here is to obstruct, and that's it. Anyway, I didn't think Trump would be the issue. I thought it would be that. But then, 24 hours after Trump said he would stay out of it, he released this. I have many wonderful friends wanting to be Speaker of the House, and some are truly great warriors. Rhino Tom Emmer, who I do not know well, is not one of them. He never respected the power of a Trump endorsement or the breadth and scope of MAGA, Make America Great Again. He fought me all the way and actually spent more time defending Ilhan Omar than he did me. He is totally out of touch with Republican voters, and I believe he has now learned his lesson because he is saying that he is pro-Trump all the way, but who can ever be sure? Has he only changed because that's what it takes to win? The Republican Party cannot take that chance because that's not where the American first voters are. Voting for a globalist rhino like Tom Emmer would be a tragic mistake. So Trump going back on his word within 24 hours should be of no surprise to anyone. I don't think he is somebody who can even physically keep his mouth shut. So the commitment he made, there was no way he was going to be able to stick to it. And so what's a rhino? Rhino stands for Republican in name only. It's terminology within that side of the aisle. You don't hear Democrats much saying it. So if you're a liberal, a libtard, then you haven't heard that before, maybe. Anyway, Trump comes out, says, oh, I don't have any guns on me, before, taking out the ninja star and throwing it at Tom Emmer. And then things start to slowly fall apart. Then we have an announcement that, hey, that private vote we were talking about earlier, the one where they're trying to reach 217, well, it doesn't sound like Tom Emmer has reached 217. In fact, he's 26 votes short of what would be necessary to win. 26. Kevin McCarthy came out to talk about it, the former House Speaker, who was taken out by 8 votes, not 20 to 22 to 24 votes like Jim Jordan, or the 67 private vote that Jim Jordan had, or now the 26 vote that Tom Emmer had, or the failure that Steve Scalise had. He was taken out by 8 votes. He came out to say that the House GOP is in a very bad place. Listen to what he had to say.
Capitol Hill, where moments ago, Representative Kevin McCarthy spoke to our Scott McFarlane about the GOP House Speaker nomination. Let's listen.
I gotta say,
I'm late for a meeting.
What's your understanding for the folks in the room who are holding out? Why?
Well, what Tom is doing right now is having those who have a difference of opinion to come up and directly ask him what is the problem and see if he can solve it. And that's the best way to handle it instead of going to the floor. Trying to see if we get to.
Is this the same opposition you faced? Is it the same people who ousted you that are opposing him?
No, I only had 8 against me.
Is there the beauty of this conference? Any number of people can always just come together to form an opposition? It feels that way.
We're in a very bad place.
Should he wait until he has 217 votes to go to the floor?
I would. I'd have that discussion here. That's exactly what he's doing right now.
But why do you say you're in a very bad place? It's a pretty strong phrase to use. Why do you think you're in a bad place?
We've been 3 weeks without a speaker. We let 8 people work with every single Democrat to put us in here to go.
By the way, this is something I'm hearing a lot more from McCarthy and McCarthy's allies. Is before, the framing was kind of like, oh, these right-wing Republicans are these like far right of the party, the Lauren Boeberts, the Marjorie Taylor Greens. They're trying to stop Kevin McCarthy and the rest of the Republican Party from doing any work to get any sort of a budget done with the Democrats, which is necessary for the economy, for the country, for everything to just function on a basic level. There has to be someone within both parties that can sit down and talk something out to get just the basic processes of government done. Even if it's just like appointing low-level military officers, which got choked up by Tommy Tuberville. There's just some things that they need to communicate on some basic level, and they were trying to stop them from doing that. That's how I view it, and that's how a lot of other people view it too. But what they're trying to do to turn it around on them is saying, hey, you're tearing us down for being moderates, but you're the one who voted with all of the Democrats against me. You've worked with the Democrats. It was you. And you'll hear multiple times in this interview, he repeats this talking point again and again and again. There was some meeting or some text message between some Republican strategist who brought this up, and now I'm hearing everyone saying it. Somebody put it in some group chat. I don't know if it was on Twitter or on Messenger or which group chat they're sharing this around in, but all the Republican McCarthy allies have been saying this recently.
Directly against what our conference rules say, that if you do a motion to vacate, you have to have 50% of the conference. And so now we're in a situation where remove the speaker, remove the majority leader from being speaker, remove Jim Jordan from being speaker, every single person that's won. And now we just gone through a battle with the elections of 9 people, 1-1, and now when we had a roll call vote, you couldn't get 217.
But what is the option, Mr. McCarthy? What is the option now? There are 26 members who are against Tom Emmer. There is no path for him at the moment. What is the option for you guys?
All right, let's not be so negative.
Well, you've been 3 weeks without a speaker, and you guys are nowhere near getting there.
I went 15 rounds. He had the first round. He's answering whatever questions somebody has, and I think some of the questions people have, they haven't given Tom the opportunity yet to even ask him that and have him answer that. And
I don't think they ever will. Like, we can listen to him say how Tom Emmer has a chance, yada yada. But the truth is, Tom Emmer doesn't have a chance because Tom Emmer dropped out. He dropped out. I read a few of the things that are coming out of what happened in the meeting that's being reported to the press, and it was interesting. He stormed out. He didn't really storm out. He said they say he briskly walked out while the meeting continued. He's out of the race for speaker. And we've got a few of the reasons as to why, and then we're going to look at this list of potential replacements. But here's one of the potential reasons. This is from Representative Rick Allen. This is not this information, but this is what Representative Rick Allen, this is a Georgian Republican, told Tom Emmer during the meeting as to why he wasn't going to support him. And he said the reason why is he didn't need to get right with him or the GOP conference. He needed to get right with Jesus because Emmer supported gay marriage. I know I said earlier that I thought this might come into play, but I thought about it. When I thought about it originally, I thought that's such a small issue in the grand scheme of things. It's a settled issue in the grand scheme of things. Is Rick Allen going to, in his mind, torpedo this guy from becoming House Speaker on the issue of gay marriage? Why? Is it because he's just angry? Because it's not like gay marriage is coming around the corner again as a major political issue. It's not like the majority of Democrats, the majority of independents, majority of Americans care particularly about this issue and bringing it back into the national spotlight when we have so many issues on the table right now. Is it that he wants to actually reopen this issue, that he's a hardliner on it, and he wants a House Speaker who's going to bring gay marriage back into question, pass some sort of federal ban, or do something to undermine gay marriage? Appoint Supreme Court justices that might pursue that? I mean, that's not his job, but is that like his ultimate goal? To have a president and a House Speaker who is in pursuance of that goal? Why? What a ridiculous issue to get caught up on a House Speaker. It's not an issue right now. It was settled 8 years ago, and he's still hooked up on it. These are the guys, when they have a margin of 5 votes that they can lose, these are the guys that Tom Emmer and the rest of these candidates are going to have to convince. One of these guys right here, one second, I think I had the full list here. Brian Donalds, who's a 2-term congressman. He's like a freshman. Why is he even running? Chunk Fishman, Mark Green, Kevin Hern, Mike Johnson, Roger Williams. These are the 6 candidates that are now throwing their hat in the ring again to see who will be House Speaker. All of these guys got to somehow make people like this happy, or only be allowed to lose 5 of them. People fighting for a lost cause, man. This guy carries the flag of St. Jude. If I've ever seen a flag of St. Jude. St. Jude is the saint of lost causes. Anyway, I wanted to show you. I think we had it up here. No, I don't have it up here. Let me bring this up to you. Let me show you what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say as to why she didn't support Tom Emmer and voted against him. I think I have it here somewhere. Is this it? No, this isn't it. Here it is. Here. I voted against Tom Emmer because he voted to certify the 2020 election results and codify marriage equality.
But I couldn't support him for Speaker of the House. His voting record is what turned me. He had voted against President Trump's ban on transgenders in the military. He voted for the Democrats' gay marriage bill that opens up churches and other places for lawsuits if they use their faith and stand against it. He was for the national popular vote at one time, and that's not a movement I can support. How much did
certifying the 2020 election results, so recognizing who won the presidency and acknowledging that. And by the way, he was actually still bringing up questions about whether the vote should be certified. He was one of the guys who was floating a little bit like, oh, maybe this voter fraud is out of control. He was gassing it up, at least to some extent, but because he wouldn't jump on the decertify the election votes wagon, which, by the way, the majority of House candidates right now, or at least in the last round, I'd have to check with the new round. There's so many rounds of voting, it's hard to keep track. The majority of them were people who were against certifying the election results. He wasn't. But just because after making a hubbub about mass voter fraud, which wasn't there, because he said, okay, fine, Joe Biden is president, that is enough to strike him off the list for some of those people. Because he wanted gay marriage to be legal and wanted it to be recognized, or at least tapped out, which is how I would describe it. I think he saw the issue. It's 8 years old. Majority of Americans are now in favor of gay marriage more than ever. And he just tapped out. He tapped out on the issue. He saw it as a lost cause, and he tapped out. That's too bad. That's too much. None of these are like big substantive issues that are going to affect the lives of millions of Americans. The transgender ban. How is banning trans people in the military affecting everyday people at home? When Americans are turning on this TV, and this is what I want you guys to ask yourselves. You're a Joe Schmo in the middle of nowhere, I don't know, in Michigan or in Timbuktu, not to, insult where they live. You know, they just live between an Arby's and a CVS in the Americaville. And you're an independent, and you're turning on the TV, and you're thinking not only about who am I going to vote for president, but this is also talked about less because it's not as flashy. Who am I going to vote for Congress? Am I going to vote for the guy on the Democratic ticket, or am I going to vote for the guy on the Republican ticket? And this is something we should be thinking about because the election's just around the corner, and we're seeing the special election results coming back, and they look good for Democrats. The polling on the national level, it's a little bit more finicky for the presidency, but when it comes to Democrats, how they're performing in the special elections, you're doing quite well. When that guy watches this and he's thinking about, oh yeah, that child tax credit's gone now, that really helped me. Oh man, you know, my gas bill, you know, that's a problem. That, you know, I want to get that dealt with. Oh man, you know, my kids' student loans, that's something I want to have that addressed. Oh, the potholes in my roads. And he turns on the TV, and you've got breaking news, NBC. You've got one of the most well-known Republicans in the House, not because of their large legislative background, but because of their large mouth. And they're hearing why they don't have a House Speaker. And he's hearing, well, yeah, that guy wanted the boys to kiss. And, like, he believes Joe Biden's president. And did you know also he wanted trans with the guns in the army? Is that going to win over independent voters? We've already have data published by not only Data for Progress, who you could say, oh, left-wing pollster. There's other pollsters that have published information as well, showing that the majority of Americans don't really see the quote-unquote woke issues that the Republicans are bringing up, like the trans military ban, as something that really energizes them. That energizes a very small percentage of the Republican base. And that's who she represents and is trying to make as heard as possible. But that's also the face the Republican Party is getting on mainstream news. And that is the reason Americans are hearing as to why they aren't able to pass a budget and why millions of federal employees may be furloughed. Hundreds upon hundreds of national parks around the country will be closed. Government services will shut down. And they're going to hear, that guy wanted boys to kiss. I don't think it's going to go well with voters. Look, I don't want to predict the results of the election this far out. A lot can happen between now and election day, but I just don't think that message is going to play well with voters.